is a new era for Wisconsin football. The Badgers made arguably the best hire of the offseason, bringing in Luke Fickell from Cincinnati to become the new head coach in Madison. And that hire and the new style that Fickell is bringing to Madison could lead to some immediate success for the Badgers, one that could see them win the Big Ten West in just his first year. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we break down everything you need to know about the Wisconsin Badgers heading into this upcoming college football season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. If you want some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country, this is the place for you. If you want guaranteed winnings, a guaranteed winning record, guaranteed money right back into your pocket, the best customer service in the handicapping business, this is the place for you. Do not miss that opportunity, guys. Sign up today for a full year-long subscription. Also, check out our Patreon account, exclusive college football content there year-round. If you want to become a member of our Patreon Wall of Fame, you can become a part of every single Gridiron Expert video and gain access to all of that exclusive content. And check out our mailing address. Send us some gear to be represented in every single Gridiron Expert video. Shout out to our man Ryan Dobis sending us that USC gear that you see above right there. One of the top teams in the country. Now we've got representation on the East Coast, the West Coast, and right down here in the South. We're looking to expand our GE Nation. More from coast to coast. Send us your team to our mailing address to represent, again, in every single video. So let's take a look at Wisconsin, guys. I love the Luke Fickell hire. I am pumped for Wisconsin football. This is a team, guys, that has made 21 straight bowl games. That streak will not come to an end in 2023. This is a coach in Luke Fickell that had great success at Cincinnati, going 57-18 in 6 years with the Bearcats, leading them to become the first ever and only so far Group of 5 team to make the college football playoff back in 2021. The year prior to that, he led Cincinnati to the Peach Bowl where they nearly took down Georgia. He thrived with the Bearcats. He will thrive with Wisconsin for so many different reasons, but the biggest one for me is the change in offense. For years under Paul Chryst and Gary Anderson and Brett Bielema, whoever it may be, it was just so, I don't want to say bland, but it was line up, bully ball up front. Offensive line, run. Never really had much of a passing attack. That's changing for Wisconsin this year. 10 starters back on offense. Offensive coordinator Phil Longo coming in from North Carolina, where as the offensive coordinator for the Tar Heels, he averaged at least 33 points per game each of the last 4 years. They add a phenomenal quarterback in Tanner Mordecai, transferring in from SMU, where he threw for over 7,100 yards and 72 touchdowns in the last 2 years with the Mustangs. They still have one of the best running backs in the country in Braylon Allen, over 1,200 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns last year. The offensive line is absolutely loaded once again. Their top 3 pass catches return. This is going to be a phenomenal Wisconsin offense. It's going to be something that we haven't seen in years. Arguably, maybe the best passing attack we've seen from Wisconsin since maybe the Russell Wilson days. I mean, this is going to be a really drastically changed team, and people are going to say, oh, it's going to take too long to change. They're not going to be, immediately successful. I beg to differ. I think you'll see some great success from Wisconsin offensively very early on. Defensively, it's going to be the same way. Strong as always. Mike Tressel in as defensive coordinator, has a pretty solid resume to his name. You look at the defense, guys. 8 starters are back after giving up just 20.2 points per game, just 303 yards per game last year. They returned their top 3 tacklers. They returned 5 of the top 6 players on the defensive line. Darian Varner transfers in from Temple. That's a huge boost up front. The secondary is extremely experienced with a major strength of the team last year. Again, despite the coaching changes, despite the new talent coming in, Wisconsin defensively going to remain the same, just as good, if not better. Offensively up front, just as good, if not better. The running game, just as good, if not better. What you're adding is a passing attack that's going to allow teams to have to figure out how to stop the Badgers. You can't just only hone in on the run. This is a team that only averaged 184 passing yards per game last year. That's going to take a major leap forward. And if you look at Wisconsin's schedule, guys, you realize that they have the perfect setup to go on and win the Big Ten West in 2023. It's a fantastic schedule for a first-year coach. I mean, you look at it. Arguably, their toughest road games are where? At Washington State and maybe at Minnesota in the season finale. Those are probably their toughest road games. Their 2 biggest games against the biggest competitors, Ohio State and Iowa, are both at home. The Iowa game certainly holding some major weight because the Hawkeyes are probably the closest competitor to Wisconsin when it comes to winning the Big Ten West. Other biggest competitor in the Big Ten West heading into 2023. So you take a look at their schedule, guys. I think they beat Buffalo 1-0. Luke Fickell gets off to a great start. I know he kind of did in their bowl game last year, beating Oklahoma State, but the official start for the Luke Fickell era begins with a win over Buffalo. Then they go on to Washington State, a team they lost to by 3 last year, 17-14 in Madison. They outgained the Cougars 401 yards to 253 yards. So outgained them by nearly 150 yards, but it was mistakes that riddled Wisconsin. 11 penalties for 106 yards in that game against the Cougars. They missed 2 field goals in that game. Don't have as many penalties, don't miss one of those field goals, they're going to win the game. Now they go to Pullman, who, again, it's not an easy place to play by any means, and Jake Dickert, his defenses are no slouch. But I think Wisconsin owns a significant offensive edge. I think they still own the defensive edge. And I think Luke Fickell's squad can overcome the road environment. A tough one at that. They start 2-0. They'll beat Georgia Southern. They're 3-0. And they're definitely going to beat Purdue, right? I mean, death taxes and Wisconsin beating Purdue. That's kind of what they say. 35-24 win over the Boilermakers last year. They've won 16 straight games over Purdue dating back to 2003, and that's definitely not going to change this year. Even though the game's on the road, Purdue dealing with a new coach in Ryan Walters, I just don't see Wisconsin struggling in this game one bit. Especially, I mean, again, you can say they both have new coaches. Luke Fickell has a lot more head coaching experience than Ryan Walters. He's a great defensive mind. We're going to go through some growing pains in his first year in West Lafayette. So just like that, Wisconsin, boom, 4-0. Going to their bye week, they beat Rutgers coming out of it. They're 5-0. The Scarlet Knights, again, not going to be a bad team this year. Could break through and make a bowl game. And under Greg Schiano, might be the year they finally do it. But off that week of rest, at home, I just don't see Wisconsin struggling in this game. So they're 5-0. Then Iowa comes to town. That's the big one, right? This could be the game that on October 14th determines who wins the Big Ten West. Both teams are phenomenal. Both teams have a fantastic defense. Both teams getting a major quarterback upgrade with Tanner Mordecai at Wisconsin, Cade McNamara at Iowa. I mean, when you look at these two teams are in very similar spots, very similar situations. It's really, really interesting. And I do think this game does determine the West. I do believe the winner of this game ends up winning the division unless one of them just kind of crumbles down the stretch of the season. If you look at the history, Wisconsin has not lost at home to Iowa. They have not lost in Madison since 2015. They did lose to Iowa 24-10 last year, but they did win by 20 points the last time that Iowa came to Camp Randall Stadium. And if you look at last year, Iowa deserved to win the game. I'm not denying that. But again, it was another mistake-prone Wisconsin game. Iowa blocked a Wisconsin punt, leading to an easy touchdown. They had a pick six. They had a huge punt return that later set up a touchdown. I mean, you look at this. I think Iowa had, 146 yards of offense in the game, and they won by 14 points. So if Wisconsin does a little bit better on the special teams, maybe they win the game. Just like the Washington State game. Better on penalties and special teams, they probably win the game. This year, I don't think Luke Fickell allows for those mistakes to happen. Both defenses are great. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I honestly would probably be surprised if either team eclipses 24, 27 points. I don't think it's going to get much higher than that. But at home, where Wisconsin has thrived against Iowa in recent years, similar teams, I'm going to give the edge to the Badgers. I actually think they kind of own the coaching edge with Luke Fickell. I take him over Kirk Ferentz just a little bit. I feel like the Wisconsin offense has a major edge. And the defense is about even, but I might even lean. I'm going to give that edge to Iowa there. But bottom line is Camp Randall Stadium is going to be rocking, and they're going to get this win. So Wisconsin, just like that, year one under Luke Fickell, they're good. They're 6-0. They're great. I mean, undefeated, probably a top 15, top 10 maybe team heading into the road game at Illinois. Not an easy game at all. Not an easy game at all. The Brett Bielema game, if you will. Bielema now the head coach at Illinois, as we know, used to coach at Wisconsin. And last year, Bielema stormed into Camp Randall Stadium and destroyed the Badgers. Absolutely annihilated them. 34-10 with the Fighting Illini. That Illinois defense, led by Ryan Walters, who's now at Purdue, held Wisconsin to just 2 rushing yards. 2 rushing yards on the entire day. That was unbelievable. And that game, and that beatdown at home, which is just unacceptable, ultimately led to the firing of Paul Chryst, which came as a surprise to some, but a change was needed. Now they got to go on the road to Champaign. It's not an easy place to play by any means, especially with Illinois finally picking up some steam and confidence under Brett Bielema. But last year's Illinois team was really good. They lose a lot of key pieces. They lose their quarterback in Tommy DeVito. Will Luke Altmaier, who transfers in from Ole Miss, will he really pan out in Champaign? I'm not too confident in that. They lose Chase Brown. That's a huge loss at running back for Illinois. Will they replace him? Sure. But will the guy who replaced him, Reggie Love, whoever it may be more effective? Probably not. Illinois' defense loses their top 2 guys in the secondary. Front 7 should be solid, but now that Wisconsin actually can throw the ball, it's going to be a little bit tougher for defenses to slow that down. Slow down that offense that can actually spread it out and be a little bit more not one-dimensional, a little bit multi-dimensional. So on the road with revenge on their mind, I do think Wisconsin beats Illinois. I think they get the revenge over the Fighting Illini, and with that, they are 7-0. 7-0, guys. Unbelievable start for Luke Fickell. Wouldn't expect anything less with the great coach that he is. Then they go into their home game against Ohio State. Major trap game for the Buckeyes, right? Ohio State very well could be undefeated coming into this game. Could be a one-loss team, depending on how they fare against Notre Dame in September. But regardless, this is the game that has major Big Ten title implications for both teams, but also college football playoff implications. Because at this point, the Badgers absolutely are in Big Ten college football playoff contention. There's no doubt about that. But I can't give Wisconsin the win over the Buckeyes. As much as I want to, as much as I'd love to see some chaos and a massive upset, massive signature win for Luke Fickell in his first year, I just can't give him the win. Why? Wisconsin has lost the last 6 regular season meetings to Ohio State. Grouped in there are a couple of Big Ten title losses as well. Last year, they lost by 31 points to the Buckeyes, 52-21. Allowed 539 yards of offense, 258 on the ground, 281 through the air. Ohio State's defense, it's salty, guys. It's not a bad defense at all. They know how to play. Jim Knowles is one of the best defensive minds in the game. I think they're going to come in here and rattle this Wisconsin team a little bit. Obviously, Ohio State going to be the toughest test that Wisconsin has faced all year. Them and Iowa are probably going to be the toughest 2 they face maybe all year long. I think the defense comes in, slows down Tanner Mordecai. I don't think they can win the game solely on the ground with Braylon Allen. And then conversely, Ohio State has one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver corps in the nation. We talked about Wisconsin's secondary. It's not bad, but I don't think they're going to have enough to shut down this passing attack, assuming Kyle McCord does pan out for the Buckeyes. All things considered, I think Ohio State, from a talent standpoint, is just a little too much for the Badgers. It's going to be very close. That was this close to picking the upset. Couldn't pull myself to do it. Wisconsin takes their first loss in heartbreaking fashion to Ohio State. Luckily for them, the next 3 games are very favorable. They'll crush Indiana, should cruise past the Hoosiers. They'll cruise past Northwestern in the midst of their big hazing scandal. It's going to be a season to forget for Northwestern. They'll cruise past both of them, and I do think they beat Nebraska on Senior Day. Nebraska at home, final home game of the year. They only won by 1 point last year, but dominated in that game. 318-171 yard advantage. They outgained the Cornhuskers by a lot. And I'm not saying they're going to do that again, because Nebraska is certainly going to take a major step forward in year 1 under Matt Rule, but I just don't see the Cornhuskers having enough to come on the road with the new coach, with the new pieces, the pieces that aren't nearly as experienced as some of the new pieces that Wisconsin adds coming into Madison and stealing the win. So I know we kind of breezed past those 3 games, but I feel very confident about those for the Badgers. They win them all. They are still only a 1-loss team. They have probably clinched the Big Ten West crown at this point, more than likely. But you realize if they beat Minnesota, they will go into the Big Ten championship game with a spot on the playoff on the line. That's what would happen if they beat Minnesota. You win that game, you're a 1-loss team, you beat Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, whoever it may be, and you go to the college football playoff as an 11-1 team. But unfortunately, I don't have that happening for Wisconsin. I think they do fall in the season finale at Minnesota, and people are going to freak out about that. Why? How? What? Wisconsin owns Minnesota. Do they? Historically, sure. Recently, no. Wisconsin has lost 3 of the last 5 games to the Golden Gophers, including a 7-point loss to them last year and a 10-point loss to them at Minnesota 2 years ago. Last year, they allowed 416 yards to the Golden Gophers. Ethan Kaliak-Manis, the new quarterback for Minnesota, dual threat capability, looked great in that game. 319 passing yards in the game against a secondary that we've been bragging about. Minnesota's defense, no slouch. They were 4th in the country last year. They are good, and they returned 6 starters on that side of the ball. It's Senior Day for them. Maybe they're in the Big Ten West conversation, or if anything, they just want to play spoiler against their rival, and this Minnesota team is no slouch at all. They are a good team. Ethan Kaliak-Manis is the real deal. Dual threat quarterback. Sean Tyler transfers in from Western Michigan. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Broncos. Wide receiver core, top 2 pass catchers return. 6 starters back on defense in the 4th in the country. You rally that all up, plus home field advantage. I like PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers to pull off a pretty massive upset in the season finale. And Wisconsin, in year 1 under Luke Fickell, will finish 10-2 more than likely advancing to the Big Ten championship game. It really comes down to what Iowa does and Minnesota does. But Wisconsin would own that tiebreaker over Iowa. They wouldn't against Minnesota, but to think that Minnesota would go 7-2 or better in conference play is a little bit hard to believe. And they're going to be a good team. I don't know if they're that good to get over that hump. So Wisconsin's looking at a really good spot here. It's a new era for Badger football, and it's going to get off to a fantastic start. Luke Fickell was the best hire of the offseason. He brings in a great team this year, great coordinators, great recruiting pedigree. He's going to build something special in Madison. Wisconsin's been contenders for years, but I think he's going to be the guy to take them to that next level. And this year could be that year. 10-2, they go to the Big Ten championship game. Maybe they pull off an upset there. But regardless, the Badgers will be heading more than likely to a New Year's Six bowl game, the double-digit win season after the disappointment we saw last year. And things can only continue to get better with Fickell at the helm. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. Our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Do not want to miss out on those. Our Patreon account for exclusive college ball content year-round, and send us some gear to the mailing address. Would love to get some Wisconsin gear represented as we expand our GE Nation from coast to coast. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.